you have to access database. So if you forgot, the URL address is, let me delete this part. So HTTPS, don't forget S, with a colon / valhalla.solsberry.edu, and also don't forget to add /phpMyAdmin. Then you will log in to the database server, and you will see the welcome page, the first page. So I logged in as a database administrator. So on the left side, I can see all students' database. But in your case, you will see only your database. So after you log in, to run any SQL, there are several tabs on top, and we are going to use this SQL tab, and we can write down any SQL statements. So you can directly type your SQL statements in this window, and you can click Go to run it. However, I recommend you to use a separate editor, because sometimes when you click this Go, the error happened, and then it's a little bit hard to recover your original SQL and to fix it. So if you are using Mac, you can use TextEdit, and if you are using Windows, you can use simple editing tools. But I recommend you to download a editor. Actually, it's a free editor that's developed for programming. So before we write down anything here, go to web page. Let's go to Google and search with Visual Studio Code. This tool will be used in your next module, in module 4 as well. So it may be a good idea to install it in your machine. Okay, so Visual Studio Code, and then let's go to download. And in this download page, you can download either Windows version or Mac version. So if you are using school computer, you can use just Notepad for Windows or TextEdit for Mac machine. If possible, please download it and install it, and then try to use it as your editor. So suppose we install this, and then I can create a new file, and you can just use any name, but I want to save as this new file any place. It could be my documents, or in my case, I will just download in my download folder. So name it as I don't know, Scratch, for example, in my case. But if you use extension SQL, this tool, the Visual Studio Code, will recognize your file as SQL statements. So it will highlight a few keywords, and it would be very useful if you use this editor. Okay, so we will start to write down here, and then when we complete it, we go back here and we will paste your SQL statements, and we will click Go to run it. Now we are going to write down actual logical models for this given ERD. So I mentioned before, but let's look at this customer, invoice, line, product, and vendor ERD diagrams. So this is a complete good ERD diagrams, and it describes all the information about customer and those attributes, invoice, and how they are related, and the same for all other entities and relationships. So using ERD, we are pretty much ready to make logical models. But if you look at create table statements, in addition to the relationship and the table and the column names, we have to know about the data types, right? So if you look at your class note, there is all available data types in the database. So here is a summary table. In general, we look at data in actually three different categories. The first one is numeric, second one is a string, and the third one is data and time. For each category, there are a few data types you can choose. So for example, integer, it's 31-bit signed binary value, and if you need more, actually you may wanna use a small integer. And if you have to use a format with the binary digit, then you can use a float value data type. And we already have used the decimal, so with the decimal points you can use decimal data type. And for string category, you can use a fixed length data type. It's character. If it's a variable length, you must use varchar. And also you can use a text data type. In terms of date and time, there are several different data types, and you may want to spend time to read all the details. So among those data types, you must choose the best one for each column. And then before you write down create table statements, there is one more step you may want to go through. So after you decide all the data type of each column or attribute in your ERD, you may want to create this kind of tables. So it's also given in your class notes. It is called the data dictionary. So it's kind of the master dictionary you can refer when you write down your final create table statements. So here you list the table and each column and the data type you have chosen, and then for each column, which one is primary key, which one is not required, or what is the default value if it means, and something like that. Okay, so it is very useful input in addition to ER diagram when you write down the create table statements. As kind of last remark before we start to write down create table statements, again we will use this ERD as a reference. So each column we have data types, and we also have this data dictionary. But keep in mind that there is a sequence you need to follow when you create tables. A simple rule. So I will give you one example. Let's say we have customer and invoice tables. The question is, can we create an invoice table before this customer table? In other words, without customer table, can we create an invoice table? The answer is no. When you write down create table statements for invoice, there is a constraint for foreign key. So in this case, this foreign key customer code is referencing which table? Customer table. So if you try to create this many-side table without this one-side table, it will give you the error message that you are referencing non-existing table. So when there is a kind of general relationship between two entities, like one-to-many, or sometimes we use the term parent and child, parent table must be created first, then you can create a child table. How about customer and invoice? Which one you must first create a table? Actually, it doesn't matter in this case. Since vendor, it is just parent, customer is also parent, there is no foreign key, right? So either of these two tables can be created without any other tables. However, similarly, product table, what you have to create first? Vendor table first. So we are going to create a customer table first before we create the invoice table. Okay, so let's move on.